We're live, gentlemen.
Look at that, a thing of beauty.
Well, after you, Scott.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Monday Night 80 BBL Blood Bowl coverage. My name's Scott, and I'm very, very pleased to welcome tonight some of our regulars. So that's Mr. Tom Hovell. Good evening, Tom. How are you, sir?
Yep, good evening. All good, thank you. Ready and waiting for all these games.
Excellent stuff. Excellent stuff. We've got 14 matches to share with you, but before we jump in, those observant and even those who are unobservant may well notice that Mr. Chris Coe is not with us this evening. Chris is away up to nefarious, no good doings. I'm sure he would be doing no more, no less. But we are contractually obliged to have some level of genetic material that is the same. So more than pleased to welcome tonight's technical whiz who is keeping us on the airwaves, the pride of the Knights of Cerulean, the coach himself, Mr. Phil Coe. Good evening, Phil.
Good evening, Scott. Good evening, everyone. How are we?
Good. We've got lots to go through. We've got lots that we're going to be asking you for your insight, your expertise, and your opinion, what you think, Phil. So without further ado, we are going to crack in terms of going through all 40 matches. Some may be more relieved than others to know there's not going to be any Scott's Corner. There's not going to be any trying to separate you from any hard-earned monies or anything you might have. We're just going to go straight into the first one. So the first week 2 match that we're going to share with you is the Inglorious Pustards. So this is Nick and his Nurgles, redrafted from last year, against Harrison, who is now on his 3rd season. First game for Harrison of the season, second comeback game for Nick. A 1-0 win, a lot of SP for Harrison as well there in terms of the update. The mighty Acorn was coming back for the Pustards. Tom, what are your thoughts on this one? A close game? Was your expectation to have a close game? Was it something you thought Harrison maybe managed the game, or Nick's chaos would ensue?
Yeah, I think it was. I always thought it was going to be a close game. Acorn is starting to become a regular fixture on these matches by the looks of things, and also staying on the pitch for quite a number of turns rather than going out in the second or third turn. Really good start for the Pustards with a casualty in like turn 5. And lots of fouling. So it was kind of expected how things would happen. Clearly, there's been a number of casualties in the second half, which kind of played off for Harrison and his Orcs as well. So it does look like it was a close game. It's probably a bit of a long, hard slog by those things, considering the two teams that are playing. Do you agree with that, Phil? Did you see any of this in the store, or
I did not see any of it, but both sides looked to give as good as they got. Let's say Acorn. Even I've used Acorn this year. It'd be the most used player this season, I would have thought, Acorn, by the looks of things. I think Harrison probably looks to earn the victory here, causing more casualties and injuries. The Nurgle team unlucky with getting injuries rather than being able to regen, by the looks of it.
It was indeed. The regen for Nurgle always does prove more handy than you'll think. It was the first game back for Harrison's. A lot of the action took effect, especially in the last third of the match, with a lot of those incidents coming through there as well. If we actually take a quick look, if you click on the Buffalo Biggins there, Phil, and we have a quick look at them as well. So it's a redrafted team. This is Harrison's 3rd season, semi-finalist in previous iterations. Last year, got through to the conference in what was a very tough league, and that he was up against as well. He's got a lot of block there. He's got block, mighty blow across the board as well. So he gives him a really good platform So, Tom, do you think this gives Harrison a really good springboard for the rest of the season, or is it too early to say?
No, I think this is a solid team. You've got, as you quite rightly say, block across the board. He's slowly building up SPP on some of those big and blockers, which I'm assuming are new guys, because obviously TVP would limit him the amount of redrafts he can do. He's got one exceptional blitzer there, which is a blodge tackle, mighty blow strip ball. Now that's a threat if ever there was one in there. Plus also another mighty blow blitzer. So you've got 3 mighty blows facing you. Pretty a daunting team, really.
It is looking very bashy, to say the least, which in this season 8 of Bash is fitting the mantra very, very well indeed. Some feedback from the coaches. From Nick, it was 3 turns from the end they caged up, took out the prehensile tail. Had a last chance to dodge in and blitz with the Pestigo. Unfortunately, it failed. A brilliant and gracious opponent. So there you go, Harrison. You have officially been labelled brilliant and gracious. It sounds like it was a bit of a slog, bit of a punch fest in the first half. And again, Nurgle did have the second half kickoff blitz against them, which leaves the injured Pestigo and then a bit of an uphill struggle to go there as well. So what's your things in terms of, is it a bit both coaches come out a win? Because again, there's a long way to go on this one, Phil. So do you think it's a bit of a happy place for both coaches? Harrison's slightly ahead.
You have a lot of games against different people. You're not playing the same person twice in the league format. And a loss, although you don't want a loss, it's not the end of the world, because you could quite easily win the next game and then draw the next game, get 4 points, and then you're in front of the person that's beaten you who might have lost their next one. It's without these bonus points, no one can build a gap to have that advantage over someone else. So it's not the end of the world. It's easy to make up.
I think, 2, even 3 losses is, not going to be the end of anybody's season by a long, long way. So good start for Harrison. Another really tough match after his vampire loss last week to Nick. So let's go from Nurgle and let's go from Orcs. And let's go into the next match of the evening then. So Phil, if you want to jump back, and then we're going to go to the Bleeding Clowns, Coach Acredes versus Dave and his Dead Star Belgrade. Brand new team of season 8, team of Corn for Scots, and then of course Dave, 3rd season now with the Shambling Undead. So 2 very experienced coaches, 2 people who have obviously been at the semis and the finals of this tournament before. A lot of experience on this. Tom, what were your thoughts before the match? Did you think this would be the 2-0 win that it ended up to be, or did you think it would be a much tighter, closer affair?
I did think it would be a bit of a closer affair, considering that you've got a well-versed redraft in the form of the Dead Star Belgrave. The star player that came in for the Bleeding Clowns with the Grasp, a star player I don't really know at all, so I don't know how much of an impact he had on the actual game. He clearly didn't, by the looks of things, cause any major injuries or any touchdowns. Either of you had any experience with this particular star player?
I've seen the model, but I hold my hand up. No, not a Nurgle fan, so probably never going to be on my roster, to be honest with you. Phil, any experience of the doubled rule?
No experience whatsoever. I saw that there as the inducements. I was like, who or what is that? I had to Google. I had no idea.
Cool. Apparently there's some nice reverb on my audio. Thanks, Justin. I'll try and keep that a bit under control as well. Number of fouls and obviously a number of things coming through. A good 2-0 win for Scott in the end. When I did speak to him in the store, he was saying that he wasn't expecting much in terms of his opening match against Dave. So to come away with that 2-0 win, It's a very good result indeed. And as we know with Dave, he's an exceptionally good coach, so therefore expect a lot more from him as we go through and as the season stretches out. To use the wonderful sporting cliche, this is a marathon, not a sprint, everybody. So that was the Bleeding Clowns versus Dead Star Belgrade. If we go then jumping quickly through, let's jump on to our next match then. And now we're coming on to two very interesting matches. So we've got the the second appearance here of our current reigning champion. This is Mr. Tom Huns and his Chaos Storm, the Chaos Dwarfs, versus Sir Honkington's Follies. This is Simon and his Gnomes as well. Now, Tom has just come off the back of a win versus the Crusaders, which we know, as we spoke about last week, the Crusaders had a lot of injury. There was a lot of the pitch as well against a team who have historically been very fragile. Had a great first start to the season in their initial win. So did you feel coming into this match, Tom, that this was very much there for the Dwarves to lose almost and pick up as much SP as they could versus the Gnomes?
Yeah, I think so. Noticing that Tom's taken Bomber Dribble Snot again, this seems to be a little play that he does. What I think he's doing is that he's preventing you from caging up, and equally because those Chaos Dwarfs have got iron hard skin, if he throws a bomb in there, they're more likely to survive. But it's nice. It looked on paper that it was a bloodbath to start off with. Injury in turn 2, a badly hurt Fox in turn 4. And a badly hurt Beastman in turn 4 as well. But then all of a sudden in turn 5, we got a touchdown on the actual from an actual known lineman, no less. So it seemed to be all to play for. But then straight away in turn 8, he got another touchdown, which brings it back into singles, kind of 1-1. Sorry. And then obviously you've got Bomber Dribble's not fouling, but still staying on in turn 12. So he's clearly been able to keep on the pitch. And he's not even sent off until turn 16, in fact, after the second touchdown, which sealed the game for Tom and the Chaos Dwarfs. So he clearly was lucky on the dice rolls with Bomber as well. I couldn't see if he didn't take any bribes and inducements. And I don't know if you can buy them outside of play. So it's interesting to see that Bomber stayed on for practically the entire match, which unfortunately does cause a lot of headaches and problems.
I think if you've got Bomber for any additional number of turns, that's always a good thing. Tom, they're playing the classic 2-1 grind that we know Tom is very adept at doing. We saw it last year with his Amazons. We saw it the season before with his Vampires as well. From your perspective, Phil, have you played Gnomes before? Is it something you look to do when you play this sort of team, if you're playing a team you believe to be weaker than yourself?
I've played against Gnomes. I just saw them as, at the time when I played, because it was just a friendly, seeing how many I could bash and get off the pitch. Which worked well then, but the person I was playing was learning. So, I probably got it a bit easy in that particular game. I was looking at this game closely because I've got to play both of these players, and they didn't do enough damage to each other, from my point of view. Noticing that Tom likes to foul. Yeah, I've taken note of that. The one thing that scares me from this gnome team here, I'll just quickly get on it. These foxes. One of them's got movement 8. Based on all this SP here, I'd say the second one's going to get movement 8 as well. I reckon they're going to be things you're going to have to watch out for later on if they survive past the table stage of the season.
So you've got two foxes who we suspect will, it's more than likely going to have movement 8. You've got a tree with block as well, so they're going to obviously give you several things, and you're starting to get dodge across a lot of the gnomes as well. So obviously there's things there, Phil, which obviously I'm sure you're going to be looking at. When you look at Tom's team, the Chaos likes to play the 2-1 grind as a strategy. We know from what Tom said as well, he likes to take Bomber, Drizzle, Snot as a complement to this team as well, to keep those cages honest and to keep them maybe open as they could be. So what's your thoughts in terms of looking at Tom in the early days of this Chaos Dwarf team development?
I kind of want to play him sooner rather than later, because a few extra skills on a couple of these, especially these Chaos Dwarf blockers, a couple of extra of the right skills, and they're going to be unstoppable. You're not going to be able to do anything to them. They got armor 10, strength 3. The movement's not great, but with Ironhard's skin to stop claws, fixed skull, they're not going to go down easy, these guys. And if they remain on the pitch, they're going to be trouble to get past later on in the tournament.
And of course, he's got his Bull Centaur with, he's got block on that in what is in effect a movement 9 piece as well. So his other, I'm sure that we'll see his other Bull Centaur before long be joining in with block, unless he's going to put maybe tackle or something else on it. So yeah, looking very ominous in terms of how Tom has really taken to these Chaos Dwarfs as well. So overall, a good win for Tom, keeping the momentum going through the season as well. Another close, hard-fought win, hard-fought loss for the Gnomes. Early days yet, but really putting some skills in place that are going to make other coaches maybe look at them as not just the SP cannon farming they used to be last year. So that's moving away then from the Amorical Blood Bowl Conference League. Let's go to our next match on the roster tonight then. So we're moving away from the small guys, the gnomes and the dwarfs, and we're going to come on to a real punch fest. We're talking Khorne against Norse. We're talking Mr. James Handley here against Dave and his Norse as well. So two very experienced coaches, two new teams as well. Tom, what's your thoughts in terms of this? Does it look like the expected slugfest that we'd imagine with Bash on Bash? Did this sort of go to your expectations in terms of the result?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. It's frenzy versus block, really, isn't it? And from tour play, it looked like a very sedate game with basically a casualty happening in turn 1 and a touchdown in turn 13, and that's kind of it. So without any more information than that, it potentially shows that the kind of Khorne against Norse is pretty evenly matched. I suppose Norse, although they've got block, they've got, I just double checking to see if they've got the same armor, but also you've got the worry that with block and frenzy, you could get both down all the time and you have a lot of stunned Khorne players on the pitch. Equally, it's clearly Dave has kept the actual team away from the touch sides on the basis that no one was surfed by the looks of things either. But I don't know any more than that. Oh, I did just notice it was in pouring rain as well. So that's probably going to add an extra level of fun to the actual day, which is what pouring rain is, making the ball slippery and difficult to hold. So it's a -1 modifier on all catch, intercepts and pickup rolls. Those two teams aren't really known for picking up or passing, are they?
That's the worst kind of weather for that, isn't it?
Yeah, so not the weather for an expansive game, but then these two teams are not the sort of ones you'd label if you're looking at a particularly expansive and open-ended match. Again, it's early days yet. Any thoughts in terms of who do you think would be the happier coach coming out of this, or is it just a 1-0 win, a 1-0 defeat, we move on to the next match, Phil?
Oh, Dave will definitely be the happier with a 1-0. I think being able to stop the corn from surfing you off the pitch, that limits the area of the pitch you play on. So you have to think more strategically about where you're placing your players. You basically ignore that very outer edge. You don't want to be anywhere near it. So to not get surfed is one achievement, and then to be able to break through for that touchdown, I'd be happy with that. Being able to hold out 1-0, that's all you need.
Excellent. So slow start, obviously, for the Corn Sharks. A good start for Norse and for Dave and his Knuckle Dusters as well. So again, we'll come back to see these at least one of these coaches in another match shortly in the roundup. Be interesting to see and keep an eye in terms of how these guys go and how they develop their teams in the next few games as well. So going away from the slogfest in the rain, that was the Sharks versus the Knuckle Dusters. We're going to be moving on now to a bit more of a one-sided game. Well, not quite that one-sided, but a game that on paper at least is a very, very good result for Chris, the Bitey Ducks, the mightiest of the Lizardman team, allegedly. 3-0 win against the Wasps. Simon redrafting the Wasps in forms of that base last year. Tom, what's your thoughts on this one in terms of the match, in terms of the Bashy York team versus a Bashy with a bit of agile team for the Ducks?
Yeah, it kind of unfortunately looks the kind of way I expected. Those Black Hawks, although they're 6 strength 4, they're not very quick, so and equally not very agile. So with the Blighty Ducks, who kind of equal them in strength and armor, but with an extra bit of movement, you can quite easily tie them up pretty quickly, leaving the rest of the pitch nice and clear for the actual little skinks to kind of run amok, so to speak. And clearly that's happened here by the looks of things. I know that you've got a troll and a couple of linemen as well, and a Goblin Bruiser lineman, which actually have got quite a few good skills on them. But unfortunately, none of them really came to anything by the looks of things.
Phil, Chris really utilising his skink runners to bring that extra degree of edge, which we know the Lizardmen can do. They can go toe-to-toe with the Bash teams, but then they have got that flexibility behind the line of scrummage. Looks like there were a couple of advantages and a couple of moments where Chris did take advantage of some issues in terms of some occurrences on the pitch as well, and really pressed home with those. What's your thoughts playing Lizardmen in terms of those extra skinks and that agility?
Well, Chris has obviously played the agility game here, with not a lot of casualties happening. Chris has pointed out in the chat that the dice let Simon down quite a bit. You can see the one time that did work for him, casualty caused on turn 9. Now, if the dice went in Simon's favour a little bit more, chances are it probably would have stayed 2-0. It might have only been 1. But with the more agile lizards, you'd expect at least 1 goal to come from that side. And, well, Chris did it 3 times.
Chris, from what we understand, does a lot of things 3 times, but that's another story for another day. If we just take a quick look then at the Wildmire Wasps. Apologies, Simon, for the mispronunciation. Let's have a look at those then quickly and have a look at some of their skills to see how they're coming along as well. Redrafted from last year, you've got a block tackle Black Orc in terms of one of your key linemen there as well. You've got block and thick skull on another one, guard on your troll, which is always going to help, sidestep, defense, safe pair of hands on another Goblin Bruiser, and then sneaky git and sidestep, which is always a nice combination on a Goblin as well. Early days, but is this still a team that gives you a pause and cause to look and think twice on this one, Tom?
Yeah, considering there's a lot of corn teams out there, This is kind of a nice little team, especially with those two sidestep goblins. So you haven't got a fear of being running down the sidelines. Plus, also with the Black Orcs that are slowly getting like block and tackle on them, they are starting to look quite good. Just a shame that that troll is down to a movement 3, though.
Thanks, Chris, for the comments as well there. But yeah, so Simon's Simon's dice letting him down at a bit of a key points there during the match as well. But Chris, I know what I meant, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So second win out of 2 matches for the Lizardmen. Early days then for Simon and his Black Hawks. Both team with a number of skilled players. Both team obviously going to be moving forward and only going to be getting stronger. Okay, let's move on to the next match then. We're going to go then from the win for the Ducks. We're now going to be moving on then in terms of another Black Orc team. This is the new team this year for Leanne and the Boulders Army against a very experienced coach in Justin. Second season in the league with the T-Belly Trudgers as well. Big and blocking against Halfling, small and dodging. Phil, if you were playing either of these teams before we start, which one would you be preferring to play at the moment, the bashiness or the edge?
I mean, at this precise moment in time, I'm having quite a lot of fun with bashiness. So the temptation there to have an orc team and bash as many halflings as you can off the pitch into the ground, eliminate them completely from existence to try and get some valuable points. That's the route I would take. Unfortunately, in this scenario, doesn't look like it's worked. I mean, by looks of it, the halflings' main enemy was themselves by fouling, sent off, star player sent off. I mean, they tried to give Leanne as much help as possible, but it just didn't work out by the looks of it.
Good evening, Justin in chat. Justin pointing out there then that Cindy calls the knockouts most turns and only one casualty inflicted by an opponent in turn 16. So, Tom, a really well-controlled match there from Justin, which we know he's more than capable of doing, and especially with the second season of his halflings.
Yeah, it was a bit of a foul fest, really, wasn't it? Straight out the gate, turn 1, turn 4, turn 6. It just kept on coming there. So unfortunately, it did look like a bit of didn't know really where to go when you're playing against that kind of strategy. Um, Keeping most of these orcs probably down on the ground, and again, because those orcs have only got movement 4, they're standing up on 3 and only can move 1 square. So again, it gives you a bit of kind of versatility and be able to get round and past them.
Justin points out in chat, Leanne had 4 players at half-time. She lined up with 8 for the second half. So when you're on that line of scrummage, you've got 2 trees staring you down as well, then it's going to be a long night. But again, a really good result for Leanne. We saw from last year into this year, she's changed team. She's feels that she's getting closer to maybe that first draw or the first win of the campaign. Phil, do you think Leanne is very far away from that first positive result?
Luck's got to change eventually. You can get rid of all your bad luck. Eventually, you're going to have some good luck. Whether it all comes in one game and then disappears again for a while, or it slowly manifests itself over a few. At some point, the games will change and you'll be seeing rewards from, perseverance.
Okay, and Tom, from your perspective, another good solid win for Justin to put him on a solid footing for his first result.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a team to be looked out for. If you're playing against, Justin and his halflings, he knows how to play most teams, and clearly he's having some fun with this one. So I'm quite pleased I'm not playing him at the moment.
Okay, so well done, Justin, on a win. Well done, Leanne, on the performance, despite all the halfling shenanigans as well, and possibly a one match near that W in the results column for you as well. So let's move away then from throwing halflings and bashing orcs. We're going then on to the next match for this evening's roundup. And we're going to be moving then back to another new coach with another new team. So we're now looking at Harry and the Chaos Dwarfs. So again, this is our second Chaos Dwarf team within the league this year as well. Up against Luke and his Chaos Renegade, the Orphic Gladiators. So you've got quite a punch fest in the making here. Three big guys against bull centaurs and a number of dwarfs as well. Just in terms of the dwarfs as well, Phil, what's your thoughts on the early results that we're seeing from the Chaos Dwarfs?
Well, it looks to be a bit mixed bag, really. You've got one team getting those wins in, causing damage, scoring those points. And we have another one that's, well, still yet to really get off the mark. I mean, they're a team that potentially can do a lot of damage to you. And with those Hobgoblin linemen, you've got an easy way to score should you get through. But like I say, they're a learning curve for this season.
A lot of casualties there, Tom, this match from the Chaos Dwarfs. If you look, 4 casualties as well, including a stat bust for a -1 movement on a renegade human lineman. They're sort of 10 a penny as well. So this looks like and feels like perhaps a match for Harry where he couldn't quite convert all those all the injuries into actual scores and actual chances on the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's an interesting one because he in the inducements he took a Budweiser keg and a cheerleader instead of a star player, and I do kind of see it that this team is a Chaos Dwarf team is quite a threatening team. Do not underestimate those hobgoblins as well. They've got the same kind of stats as a human lineman effectively, so they can pack a punch, and you can see that with in turn one that badly hurt a human lineman. In fact, I know from experience that a hobgoblin killed one of my blitzers. So it's always the fact that you're focusing on the kind of dwarfs and the bull centaurs, but those hobgoblins are a threat as well. I just think that you do need a kind of an extra element with the Chaos Dwarfs, which, you know, as I've mentioned before, Tom has kind of got with Bomber Dribblesnot, where you know that you can, if you can position your team as far away from those dwarves, and you've kind of segregated off the hobgoblins, you kind of can do quite well. Now, this is what may have happened in this game, because even though it started off being a bit of a injury fest against the Chaos Renegades, they clearly came back and came back hard. By turn 2, they kind of equaled the numbers back because there were two players down in turn 1, but they came back and then they caused 2 injuries in turn 2. So as you say, it was a bit of a bash fest. Both teams seem to have come off with a bit of a few people out for next games, and also a few kind of stat busts, in fact.
Indeed, the 2 big guys for the Chaos Renegades, the Roger and the Troll, doing when they work, what they do best, injuries and missing next games for the players as well. If we quickly look at the team and we look at the Chaos Dwarfs, we look at the Top Hat Society. Tom mentioned there, Phil, about having a star player. We saw Tom Hans taking Bomber Dribble Snot as well. Do you think that the addition of a star player gives those Chaos Dwarfs maybe something they're missing with the tackle skill that was removed from them as part of their relaunch?
I'd say yes, it does, because although you've got those agile hobgoblins at the bottom there, no skills. you need to, SP them up and start adding stuff to them. I mean, I was looking at these team earlier at the skills they've got, and I was thinking you just change one of those skills for something else, and then it changes the entire team of what you could do with it. I think something slightly more agile. Perhaps I would have thought on the centaurs, if anything. I would have replaced sprint with juggernaut. That would have changed how you'd use them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a conversation for the GW game designers as well. When we look at some of the other on that team as well, where Harry had got his SP, so if we look at his sneaky stabber, we look at one of his dwarf blockers as well, then it's only he's got one hobgoblin lineman with any SP who's going to make it through to the next match as well. It's only 2 seasons in. Tom, do you think that's going to have an impact in terms of team development for Harry and for all coaches as they think about progression, that need for SPP? Or do you think because of the length of the season, having one match with low SPP isn't going to be that impactful?
Yeah, I think with this one, it's interesting because it's the sneaky stabber is the difference between the 2 chaos teams that we've spoken about. I don't know whether they are overvalued, those sneaky stabbers, because again with skills like shadowing and stab, stab's okay, but shadowing with armor 8, I don't know whether that's worth the 70k it commands, rather than just a standard hobgoblin lineman with 40k. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting kind of development on these. My view is that, as we've got so many games this season, and let's be honest, some of these teams are new to everyone, and let's not just think about kind of team development, but enjoyment as well. If you're enjoying the team and kind of getting into the thematics of these teams, then equally that's as good as a win in my book.
Agree, and I think for Harry as well, he played Chaos Chosen back in season 7, so he has been looking forward to the release of the Chaos Dwarves for some time. I think there's a good, even though he's got 2 players out, I think there's still going to be a good platform for him to build on. I think Tom is showing when you can utilize someone like Bomb and Dribble Snot just to be able to break those cages. Gives you a lot to do as well. Good evening, Luke. Luke does mention in chat as well the fact that obviously the centaurs, which are agree strength 4 gutter runners, especially with that sprint and sure feet. So and again, Luke continues in a good vein of form there with the Orphic Gladiators. Big guys doing what big guys should. Let's see if that continues as we go through for his next matches as well. So let's leave behind then the Orphic Gladiators versus the Chaos Dwarves. Just if I do click the next button. Moving then on to 2 teams who, Phil, you know quite a lot about there. You've got Odin's Raven. So these are JD's Norse. The Norse team who were former Dark Elves, they were former Khorne. Now JD's obviously gone with his Odin's Ravens as well. First game of the season up against Jane and her Wolverhampton Shamblers, the Necro Horrors, who are season 3 into their iteration as well. So Phil, before this match, what was your thoughts on this? What was your expectation in terms of these 2 teams?
I'll be honest, I thought the more agile team, the Necromantic Horror, were going to do the better in this game. I played against us, but my first game was against Jane, and trying to control those werewolves was part of my game plan going into it. And if you can keep them at bay, you could have a solid game against them. If you can't, they're going to cause trouble and potentially run rings around your team. It was a Ghoul Runner that scored the second touchdown, and it was a Werewolf that scored the first touchdown. Both coming in, one in each half. So who received in the first half? Was it? Do you reckon JD? I would
Looking at
say maybe.
looking at the series of events, I think it was JD. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, being able to take the ball away from JD, who you would have thought would have control of it in the first half, and then score, that breaking through, and then in the second half, having the ball, from the start, being able to keep control of it, slowly work your way through, and then scoring towards the end.
It was, and a number of casualties, and particularly a -1 AV, which isn't the worst thing on a key Valkyrie star player. Plus, as well, we saw the wonderful reappearance of everybody's favourite killer squirrel as well. Tom, you've played Jane several times this season and last season. What was your thoughts when you saw JD going into this with Acorn? Did you feel like Phil did that Jane's experience and the Necro Edge would add something a bit different than the Norse's block could maybe manage?
Yes, yeah. I think like you say, Jane is very skilled with this team now. She's been very tactical with putting the right skills on the right players, not randomizing everything, but at certain points just randomizing just on the linemen. Back in the day, and then I think she's fired them and then bought another one. But you're right. She's got a really decent werewolf there with wrestle, tackle, and jump up, as well as the classics. She's got some fantastic SPP that she's holding on to. So clearly she's got a game plan with this team. I've yet to play JD and his Norse. In fact, I think I've got him next. So I'm looking forward to this. It's an interesting setup, actually. And he's down a Valkyrie. So I might try my luck and try and give him a run for his money. But there are some really dangerous players on that team. He's got a lineman there with Mighty Blow and Sure Hands, and a Berserker with Dauntless, Shadowing, and Armbar. So clearly he's just been randomizing a lot of stuff. I don't know. It's a bit of a funny combination of skills there. So we'll have to see how that goes.
It is. We look forward to seeing how JD develops this team over the next couple of days, games and matches. And another really good win for Jane. 2-0, clean sheet, gets the 3 points, and maybe a bit more of a balanced game if you look at the SP in terms of Jane really taking her chances, getting the 2 touchdowns and getting the 3 points and getting that win as she moves up the standings board as well. So going then to the next match, which is the Bleeding Clowns versus the Orphic Gladiators. 2 coaches we've already spoken about tonight. This is the second game of the season for the Clowns, third game of the season for the Gladiators. Bleeding Clowns off the back of that 2-0 win against Dead Star Belgrade and Chambly. Orphic Gladiators off after that bit of a slugfest against the Chaos Dwarves and Harry's Top Hat Society as well. What would your expectations, Tom, be at the start of this match? Did the 1-1 reflect expectations at the start of the game?
Initially I thought, oh, crummies, you've got Krieg on that Bleeding Clowns team as well, which is a frightening thought if ever there was one. But Luke's clearly held his own on this, and hats off to him, because we all know that Scott is a formidable player. And causing casualties again with his trolls and his big guy in the form of Ogre as well. This is all great SPP for the Chaos Renegade team. So he's holding on to that SPP and not just randomizing it on them. So again, he's clearly building up those 3 big guys for something special later in the season. It looks like a lot was going on backwards and forwards by the looks of things. And it was great to see that he managed to pull off a draw right at the last minute. Again, with the Chaos Renegades, you always kind of rely on that Dark Elf in the team to be your main ball handler. and it clearly paid off.
And then Phil, these two coaches played head-to-head last season as well. Scott, of course, last year played. What did he play last year? Oh, yeah, I forget. It was that OWA that we're not allowed to talk about anymore as well. And Luke, of course, played Nurgle. So two very different teams in terms of their dynamics. And in terms of the starter, as Tom mentioned, and we're seeing him quite a lot at the moment this season. We've seen him in several matches. We're seeing Krieg Rusgauger making much more appearances. Do you think Krieg gave the Bleeding Clowns that extra bit of muscle to go up against the Orphic Gladiators and their three big guys?
It probably did give extra muscle. Not that a Khorne team would need that much extra muscle, because they're pretty bashy and could probably done it without him. I did notice that both teams had to take journeymen at the start of the game, so both of them weren't going in with the full complement of players. So maybe taking that style player was help replacing any bashy strength that Scott was missing from the previous game.
It is definitely, and we're seeing obviously these are early days within the season as well. Quite a number of teams in matches 2, 3 having to resort to a number of linemen as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Speaking to Scott about this match, he said it was a very, very good game. I think he's pleased where the progress of the Clowns is today. He said at the beginning of the season, at the start of the season rather, if he'd have been told he got at least one win or even at least one draw result out of the first two games, he'd be super pleased. So to get a win against Dave and a very good draw against a very commendable coach with Luke as well, puts him in a good place. So really, this result benefits both coaches, Tom.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that you get to put, as we've said many times before, it's nice you get to play against so many different teams. And equally, you don't have to play people twice. so it was a great result for both teams.
So good result for Scott and for Luke there with the Clowns against the Orphic Gladiators. Going on then to our next one. So looking then at, again, two very experienced coaches, two coaches who have made the final of this tournament as well, who know each other not just through the ADBBL, but through the Ipswich leagues as well. So we've got second match of the season there for Dave and the Dead Star Belgrave. And then up against John, Mr. John, the legend Reader, and the Vampires. John, coming into this season with the Vampires, had two good wins to start, heavily scoring, 2 4-0 wins as well. And in terms of the inducements, Dead Star Belgrade taking extra team training. Really strong start for the Vampires as well. And Phil, is John now, has he taken this vampire team into that realm where they are very, very dangerous and more dangerous to opposition coaches than themselves?
Yes. I mean, John is a very smart, strategic player as it is. I've only played him, I've played him twice. He won 1-0 against me just one time, and we drew in the other game. And he really thinks about every move he's going to make. He'll even not make moves if he doesn't need to. He'll leave players alone if they're absolutely fine. I think what we're seeing here is a brilliant coach mastering a very dangerous vampire team. You just have to look in the other games he's played where you've had 2 4-0s. That is, you don't get that, purely on luck twice in a row. That doesn't happen. You've got to have a skilled, know-how coach using his team to perfection, basically. With 4-0 Vampires, you got to say that Bloodlust must be coming in useful, being able to dodge past players without having to roll for it. And he's getting the most out of them.
It was indeed. And as you can see there, Dave doing a lot of fouling, did get some sending offs as well. And this was, if you actually, this is one of the matches, if you do want to go and watch it, sports fans, this is available on YouTube if you want to go and take a look at this. So John did take an early control of this match, and then Dave really couldn't get back into it in terms of the actual progress, and especially as he started to lose a number of zombie linemen as well. If we click on the Terrors, the vampire team, let's have a quick look at their skills then, if you can do that, Phil. Tom, as a former vampire and probably future vampire coach as well, if we look at the way John, not Tom, if we look at the way John has developed this team, block, dodge, pro on his 2 throwers, block on his 2 runners, one with dodge, strip ball and block on that blitzer, and lots of SPP in the bag, and then plenty of thralls to keep them fed.
Yeah.
Can you see a weakness in this team apart from bloodlust?
No, he's made that team bulletproof, or should I say stake-proof in There's Their Vampires. I thought I'd get a joke in there at some point. Bad one of that. No, he's definitely been playing the long game on this. He's got the perfect skills now on that team. The only thing that can really stop him now is the bloodlust. I'd be really interested to know how effective he's been putting hypnogaze to use, because that is a skill on this team that I often found people forgetting about or not taking full advantage of, because the stats on these players are so good, with this edge of 2 across the board, and also the movement of a very good movement, as well as the strength 4s. Now, as we've said, block, dodge, pro on these. Hypnogaze can really open up a cage, can also really open up doorways for the rest of the team to file straight through. So this is for me, John's vampire team is at the moment the team to look out for in this season.
Definitely. Dave's commented in chat, evening Dave. Talking to John after the game, the blitzes had a massive impact on the game and swung it his way. So Phil, the Vampires really showing there that they have an opening. John and the Vampires are not going to, miss that opportunity and make the most of it as well.
I say, with those skills there, does he? I mean, he only needs those thralls just to try and keep bloodlust at play, doesn't he? If it wasn't for bloodlust, you could probably just take those top 6 there. Don't bother with the rest. That would do it. That's got to be more dangerous than a dodgy elf team there with the hypnogaze. I wouldn't want to try and keep that at bay. I don't think you could. They're gonna get through somewhere.
Indeed, John looking very, very strong in the early stages of Season 8. This is the second defeat in the past for Dave, but he's been up against probably his 2 strongest opposition coaches, with all due respect to all our other coaches in that division as well. But in terms of experience within the league, coming up against John and against Scott, coach at Crady's as well. Is it too early, Tom, to say anything to write off Dave? Is there plenty of opportunity for him now to come back with it? There's 6 wins, 18 points up for grabs. For someone like Dave's skill set, is that eminently achievable?
Oh, easily, yeah. Never. I don't think at this stage we should write off anyone. And yeah, it hasn't been the best start for Dave and his shambling undead, but we've known from previous seasons that this is a formidable force. So all good luck to him. I'll wait to see what happens in the next games.
Okay, let's go away then from the happiness of the undead and vampires and all that joyful sunshine to the beach sunshine of the Riptides. So this is the Corn Sharks from James, second match of the week for these guys against Jack here and the Necro Horrors of the Washington Deadskins. New coach, new Necro team for the season as well. Now, if we look at this one, speaking to some insiders, this was a real mixture of one of those games where the dice aren't going your way, and you are just getting injured and taken off the pitch on it feels like every single dice roll. James, of course, is the current reigning holder of the Stanley Cup, a new team with Corn as well. Looking at all those injuries, looking at all those casualties, six injuries against, including one dead player. Phil, was this a bit of an upset in terms of not just the win, but the scale of the win in terms of the injuries and deaths as well?
I reckon he'll be more annoyed by the damage that has been done to his players than you would be the loss, I would have thought. I mean, you look at everything on James's side of the board here. Starting at the beginning, armor value gone, injury missed next game, badly hurt, dead, another armor value, and another badly hurt. I'd be more annoyed losing the players than I would be losing the game there.
Yeah. Tom, what's your thoughts in terms of seeing so many injuries on your particular on your player?
Yeah, it must be quite demoralising. He's now down to 7 players in the next game, so it's 4 journeymen he's got to take along. On the plus side, the majority of those that are out for the next game are linemen, so it's a kind of effectively a swap in, swap out, but just with an extra loaner, unfortunately. But he's also experienced another weather very sunny, although the very sunny wasn't really going to cause too much problem with either of these teams, which is down to passing. But yeah, I feel his pain. I know the feeling, as we'll soon come to. It's one of those games where you just put it in the bank and put it to the back of your mind for the next game.
It is. For Jack, his new Necro Horror team as well. Perfect start, really, Phil, yeah?
Yeah. Nice win. 2-0 against what's a very, very bashy team. Looking at the Necromantic Horror team at the moment. Lost one lineman in that first game. That's not the end of the world. All the key players are still there. And a lot to build on. Did I say? One win, a couple of SP dotted around here and there, but still plenty that can be done to that team to make it pretty formidable.
Yeah, I think sure hands on a goal runner is always a great shout for the first skill to get that up there. So you get the reroll and the pickup, and you get the immunity to strip ball as well, which is always very, very nice. So commiserations to James. We've always been there, and as Blood Bowl coaches, we will always be there again. It's part and parcel of the game we love. Well done to Jack and the Washington Deadskins for their first opening salvo of season 8. So going away from the Deadskins and the Sharks, then moving on to our next match. This wasn't quite the Rumble in the Jungle. It was more the clash of NDP in A&D. So this was myself against Mr. Hovel. Tom, you want to talk about it? And then Phil, you can ask as many questions.
I'll let you two fight this one out. I'm just going to watch.
I left it all on the pitch, quite literally. They were all over the place. Yeah, it was a classic game of just couldn't roll higher than 3 on this game. Helmut Wolf, I've really had some hopes of cutting down some elves. When I borrowed Scott's kind of Helmut Wolf model, and when I asked him if I could borrow it, he responded with you didn't have to ask if it was against elves. Unfortunately, he didn't really come to anything, and actually got fouled himself off, I believe, wasn't it? Was that right, Scott?
He did get himself fouled off. I think it's one of those matches, Phil, whereby, if I remember, Tom, you did have a blitz on the opening kickoff event, and I thought this is going to be maybe quite a long afternoon. But as it wore on, I think Tom was getting the armor breaks, but he wasn't getting anything in terms of the injuries, and that really sort of came to fruition. In the second half, he did, but by then the Elves, we done what Elves had done, look to score early, get a number of completions, and then when Tom broke through, so I know you did a throw with your ogre on your halfling, stuck it on a 6 Tom.
Yeah.
And then dodged through and dodged out with a push, some extra bits and pieces in there. And then the War Dancers did what War Dancers did. They ran back. They're able to close that gap on any players who aren't marked. And then with Strip Ball and Blodge on a lot of them as well, and tackle, they're able to take ones out and then quickly move the ball, get it up the other end of the pitch as well. We did have blizzard conditions to start, but unfortunately, on the after the second touchdown, the kickoff event rolled back to nice weather, so that always helped as well. And then it was a question, just a numbers game, and in terms of just staying away. So whilst I was losing the players, Tom was really, even to Coach Acreedy's Scott Phipps is utter disbelief. The number of ones. And Tom, the stat for our listeners today, I know you are keeping a track record of this. How many ones did you roll during our match?
26 ones. So yeah, it was practically one dice rolled a 1 every turn or every 3 turns. So it was quite heartbreaking. And in fact, the fact was that, as you say, as Scott came over to have a look at the thing, picked up my dice, rolled a 4 and a 5 against. There's nothing wrong with it. I picked them up, and just rolled them, and straight away they rolled a 3, a 1 and a 2. So I literally have done something horribly wrong to dice in a former life, I think.
I've got a question for you, Tom. Did you just give up on trying to score? Because all you really do in the second half is foul, as if you've ruled out scoring altogether. It's like, sod it. I'll just see what I can do to the people on the floor.
I might be going for other honours at that point. I was like, every time I tried to actually break armor or do anything with it, it just wasn't coming off. And even just trying to get to the elves was a nightmare. Scott knows his wood elves very well, and those war dancers are just pure dangerous. They can run across the pitch and just cause casualties, as you can quite easily see straight away, very easily, and then dodge away. One of those games I want to forget. I still haven't worked out playing against elves. They're slippery characters.
I can see, Phil, in terms of as an elf coach, I can see why people want to stomp them into the pitch and see them as a casualty at the bottom of their boot.
I do get it, because when they're constantly running away from you and all you want to do is cause damage and you can't keep up with them, it's annoying. And I can understand that. But there is something quite fun and satisfying dodging through the impossible, scoring the touchdown. It's like, yep, see, I can do that, you can't.
Yeah.
There is something about that. However, when they do get stat busted, and when they do, when you do get cleared off a pitch, you do see the other end of the spectrum quite quickly as well. So, not wanting to prolong the results there for Mr. Hobble. Let's move on then to the next match that we're going to look at tonight. 2 more to go. This is the penultimate one then. This is, again, another bit of a crunch fest looking at it. Chaos Chosen, Sir Simon, and the second outing for the Hillbilly Howlers against the Norse, Jack and his Argathan Mewers. Simon once again deciding to go with Creek Rust Gouger. So the big ball and chain Super Rat Ogre himself with the I'll be back special rule. So therefore, when you get sent off as a special weapon, he can come back as well. Another slugfest, another lot of bashiness as well. SPP not too far apart from them. Number of casualties pretty close as well. Phil, from your perspective, looking at these two, Beastman and the Chaos Chosen against the block of the Norse, is this what you'd expect in terms of quite a low scoring, very nitty gritty, very tactical affair?
Jack wanted a win. He hasn't had the best start to this season, and I think he's deserved more than what he's got. He was very unlucky when he played me, and you can tell that being the first person to score 1-0, going 1-0 ahead, causing a casualty, being the first person to draw blood. He had that more get up and go in the game for him. Unfortunately, the Chaos Chosen were able to equalise. That was the beginning of the second half. But Jack stuck to it. Jack, he kept digging in, got that second touchdown, managed to hold off until the end.
It was, as you said, Jack's had a bit of a tough start this season. Had some very challenging opposition as well, yourself included there, Phil.
Thank you.
So a good win for Jack. Simon's second match with these guys. He's obviously bringing on an extra team mascot to give him the opportunity for the second re-roll. He's only gone for the one re-roll as start of this draft, though. Do you think that maybe on a new team a risk too far, Tom?
Yeah, potentially. It's one of those. It's an interesting game and an interesting lineup. From a psychological, visual perspective, Jack's team just look awesome. Those conversions really do look spectacular on the pitch, and this game seems to have had everything, including cow on pig action with the Minotaur injuring the beer boar. So it is an interesting one that you only have one re-roll. Is that too risky? Not sure. These Chaos Beastmen with horns sometimes gives you a little bit of the edge when you can obviously run up and two dice someone on a blitz. It's an interesting concept just to have one re-roll.
You play different when you've not got the re-rolls, because you take less of a risk, you think more strategically. I found that out with the Khorne. Had that first season with elves, I think I ended with like 4 re-rolls, and I was doing risky stuff knowing I could roll again. And when I first started with the Khorne, I only had the one re-roll, and you really got to think, do I need to use it now? I need to save it for something better later on, and it makes you play differently.
It was. So a very close match then. The first win of the season for Jack and the Mewers. Getting some good skills there on his players. So it'll be interesting to see how Simon's going to play the next set of matches. Is he going to stick with the Creek Rust Gouger to give him the extra firepower with that ball and chain? Obviously, when that works, it's a very, very good piece. When it doesn't work, it can be frustrating as well. And then it'll be interesting as well to see if and how Jack moves on now with his Norse in terms of the rest of the season. So getting on to the last match for this evening's Monday night roundup. It was the Plague Brigade, the Skaven, against the incredible Jaffa Cakes. Apologies to Mr. Norman. I have forgotten completely, or I've lost the piece of paper where I had Jaffa Cakes written down, and I apologise. I hadn't memorised it. So, apologies again for that one. Two very agile, two coaches, first game of the season for both of them, two very agile teams. And Tom, to start with, an incredible setup really for Scott and the Snotlings.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's randomizing the star players using the bingo balls kind of thing. And my goodness, that's a lineup if ever there was one.
He was, and with the team, sorry, not with the team mascot, but with the riotous rookies, he actually started with 23. Yeah, 23 uh, players in terms of the Snotling lineman as well. So you re-roll max on the number of additional linemen you could bring in as well. So it was the full 7 he could bring on board as well. And then rolling, you've got Papa Skullbones sitting there. You've got Varat, Gulchewer, and then Skitter. And if that wasn't enough, you've got a giant sitting on the board there as well. So Phil, terrifying or not?
Very terrifying. I mean, you look at that Snotling team and think, well, that shouldn't be a problem. You can bash some of them away, and then you realise, oh, hang on, they're about to bring every single star player they can because of the inducements onto the pitch, and completely change anything you would have had planned. That's you're literally every game against this team is going to be unknown because you don't know what those extra players are going to be.
And the way it's been managed, Scott's saying in chat, good evening, Scott. He's given the opponent the honours of spinning the cage. So it sounds like Carl, bless him, has only got himself to blame with his rat. He says the Rat Ogre was the MVP for Scott as well. First activation, turn 1, killed his own lineman. And if a Roger can't do that, Scott, it's really not doing its job properly. Straight away from turn 1 then, Phil, 1 Skaven lineman down. And then it just keeps going and going and going. And they did post on Discord, Carl was tabled by turn 15 with KO'd Rogar and everybody off the pitch. So, Phil, what's your thoughts on that? Incredulous or terrifying if you're playing Mr. Norman and the Jaffa Cage?
It's terrifying. I mean, on like I say, to have all that come in for inducements, and on the other hand, it could quite easily backfire. You could get all the wrong people to come in based on this random style of play that Scott's going to try and play with. So it's worked out well here. Another game, could see him completely off the pitch instead.
And Tom, what's that? The chaos then, and the absolute uncertainty of everything, and the excitement and fear factor that brings to the games. Is that something you'd like to play against Scott and his team?
As Phil's quite rightly said, it all kind of boils down to which star players turn up. And just quickly looking at what star players a Snotling team can have, they all come with some absolute crackers of team. We've got things like you've got all your classic Goblin star players, Scrapper, Nobbler, Fungus the Loon. You've got Skitter, Krieg. You've got all and Hackflem and Glart. So you've got all the Skaven. And then you've even got some of the big boys like your Morgan Thorg and Ripper Ballgrot. Not to mention a flipping giant, for goodness sake. That is going to be some formidable team. I think the Snotlings are just there as cheerleaders by the looks of things.
There is one downside, though. With all those star players doing most of the work, the rest of the team is going to be very slow at gaining SPP. So, as far as upgrading them or any players is concerned, that's going to take a while to do. As if he even does it. He might just sack them if they get too good and to keep the inducements.
He was indeed. And as Scott's saying in chat, no upgrades. He's not a complete monster. No rerolls. Just a call out to one thing, which I know didn't quite come to fruition in the first match, but I'm sure we will see in the next match. In the spirit of the Owlbear from season 7, I believe, Scott, you did try to do a handoff to your giant to run that in to score for a touchdown, and unfortunately it didn't quite work. So we'll keep our fingers peeled for that one. Tom, looking at the Skaven then for Carl, up against it first match of the season. Then we know Carl has a great ethos and has a great spirit as a coach. Only 7 players available. He's only got 1 gutter runner. He's got 3 rerolls. 1 gutter runner is really all you need with Skaven. He's obviously going to have to take lineman. Going to be a challenge for him for his next match, whoever he's facing.
Absolutely, yeah. It's one of those things. It's really unfortunate when you have your first match like this, and you're out now with only 7 players, and you look at that and think, I got some SPP, but 2 of the ones who got the most SPP on are actually out for the next game. Yeah, not unfortunately, just not a great start.
But then, Phil, if you were going to come back with any team in particular, even with 1 gutter runner, but with 3 rerolls, Skaven are going to be good for a comeback, surely, aren't they?
You've got to say they are. Nice bit of agility through the team there. You can still score. You might not be allowed. Might not be able to do a lot of damage to the opposition team, but there's enough agility there to score and get a win, even if all you're doing is scoring and the other players counteracting it with another touchdown. You just have to outscore the opposition that way. Just use that agility as best as you can.
Okay. So we look forward to the next game of the Jaffa Cakes to see what random star players the opposition coach will draw. Carl, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you. I'm sure if any team can bounce back, but you can with those Skaven as well. So let's just finish off then, if we jump up and if we go quickly to the standings boards, just to see where the early days are as well. So in the Amorical Blood Bowl conference there, we have 4 teams who have still got 100% record, although with Dave and the Knuffle Dusters, we obviously have 5 teams who are undefeated yet in the league. Apologies. Graham and Jamie still undefeated yet as well, and Oggs has yet to play with his Blood Bowl bowlers as well. Early days. Tom, still plenty to do for the Crusaders and for James and for Elliot and Simon as well, all to play for in that. And then if we scroll down and we do look at the Knuffles Blood Bowl conference as well, John Reeder there, 3 from 3, 10 touchdowns, 1 against, 7 casualties. Looking very strong. Luke in a fantastic 2nd place as well. And then we've got several unbeaten teams. So you've got the Ducks, the Clowns, Justin and the Trudgers. You've got the Jaffa Cakes after their pitch clearance, fantastic results. And then Harrison and Andy there, early days with his Vampires as well. So lots of changes, lots of things happening. Just looking at the tables, Phil sitting there 2 from 2. What's your thoughts on the season so far? Very, very happy so far?
As best start I've had to a season. Haven't lost yet. Haven't conceded any touchdowns either. I've been pretty defensive. I'm finally learning how to play.
And if you look either at the either conference, is there a particular team who you think is starting to stand out?
I mean, those Vampires, John Reeder's mighty team at the top there. That's if they don't go the whole of the league stage unbeaten, I'll be shocked. That's a hell of a start to have, and the skills he's got on that team. That I feel pity for the person that has to come against them.
Watch this space. And Tom, from your perspective, early days yet, plenty to play for. And is there any team that you're looking at who you're thinking starting to, look good?
Yeah, I wonder whether the Jaffa Cakes and the Vampires are playing against each other. If so, that needs to be streamed to see what the outcome is on that one. That would be an interesting game to see. Yeah, the actual
They
conference.
are apparently.
Fantastic. Well, excellent. Well, we'll have to try and arrange that to be streamed at some point. So we'll be in touch if we can get that running. That would be definitely one to watch. See what happens there on that one. On our conference, for all three of us, in fact, it seems to be still relatively open for all, apart from myself at the bottom here, because there seems to be quite a nice balance of teams. I don't know about you, but I've been really enjoying the fact that you're kind of playing so many different types of teams as well as different coaches this season. So for me, that's the fun of this season.
Yeah, you could have quite easily got a matchup of fixtures where all you're doing is playing against bashy teams, or all you're doing is trying to chase down agility teams, and it is very mixed up, and that's what keeps it as close as it is.
So, second week in, a long way to go. If you want to join us on the next week's or any other Monday night roundup, please let us know. Contact us through the store, DM one of us direct in Discord. And if you want to join us and give us your opinion in terms of matches and all things Blood Bowl related, please do. Just a quick reminder, everybody, if you are booking a table, use best practice, please. So agree with your opponent the time and the date, and then agree one of you, not two, just one of you, get in touch with the store. So message the store directly, pop in and see Scott or give him a call. Don't email on his personal. And then one of you book and agree to arrange that as well. That's me. That's the end of this week's Monday Night Roundup. Tom, thank you very much indeed. Phil, thank you very much for your technical support and all your insights. Good luck, both gentlemen, for the remainder of the season. I've been Scott. This hasn't been Chris Coe. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been ADBBL Monday Night Roundup, and we'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.